Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Shifty's 49ers Talk. In this video, I'm going to be doing my fifth and final mock draft for the San Francisco 49ers for the 2023 NFL Draft. We're going to be doing all 7 rounds, of course, not going to do any trades, and we're going to do basically pick by pick using Pro Football Network's mock draft simulator. I was going to use Pro Football Focus, but then you have to pay if you want to do more than 3 rounds, so I said screw that. We're just going to use Pro Football Network's one. As each 49ers pick comes in, of course, we're going to talk about who I select and why I select them. And as always, guys, leave your thoughts in the comments about the picks that I've made or who you would have made in terms of who was available at the time. But let's not waste any more time, guys. Let's jump right into the final mock draft for the 2023 draft season. Alrighty guys, so as you can see, we are basically ready to go here on profootballnetwork.com's mock draft simulator. We selected the 49ers. We're doing all 7 rounds. We're going to do the draft speed on fast. That way we can just get to the Niners picks a little bit faster. So we're just going to click Let's Draft. We'll get it started. Of course, the 49ers, our first pick is number 99 overall. The 3 third-round compensatory picks. Then we don't draft again until the 5th round where we have 3 picks. 1 pick at the end of the 6th round, and then 4 picks in the 7th round. So here we are, we're at pick 99, and already you can see a number of really solid options here at positions of need for the 49ers. So I'm just going to really just jump right into this, and I'm going to go with a player that the 49ers have met with, and that's going to be safety Jammie Robinson out of Florida State. Now, safety to me is not necessarily an immediate need for 2023. However, when you look beyond this season, you see Tashaun Gipson is probably going to either retire or maybe leave. We don't really have a ton of depth at safety currently with a number of players leaving in free agency. Right now on the roster, we have Tashaun Gipson, we have Hufanga, and we have George Odom. George Odom, I think, is signed for 1 more year. Hufanga, of course, in a couple of years will probably be due a massive contract extension. But getting some quality depth here at safety, really important because one injury and all of a sudden we are in big trouble there. So bringing in Jammie Robinson is really a pick that could help us this year, maybe special teams, things like that, or for depth purposes. But I think down the road, 2024 and beyond, could be a very valuable pick. And that's going to be a theme in this mock draft because the 49ers, let's face it, in terms of our starters, we have quality starters pretty much all across our roster, or at least guys penciled in to start. So it's going to be difficult for any rookie to come in immediately and start. Now, that's not to say that it won't happen. I just think that it's going to be relatively unlikely. Now, the Raiders at 100 took a running back, Chase Brown. I'm totally okay with that. Contrary to what Lynch and Peters and Shanahan will do, I'm not taking a running back at the end of the 3rd round. Maybe if Bijan Robinson was there, but he is not, obviously. So with the next pick, and we now have back-to-back picks, another position that I think is relative need is I'm going to go with Zach Harrison, the edge out of Ohio State. Now, of course, we get to pair him with our fantastic edge player, Nick Bosa, who also went to Ohio State. But to me, Zach Harrison, a guy who's incredibly athletic, I think would benefit greatly, using his athleticism, but benefit greatly from having a guy like Chris Cassera coach him up, in a really good defense, and he's not going to be expected to be the guy right away. Of course, we have Nick Bosa. We have Drake Jackson coming into his 2nd year, which I think he will be improved over his rookie year. We brought in some veteran guys in free agency. So here, for depth purposes, allow Zach Harrison to maybe just be coached up in 2023, play some snaps here and there, and then maybe in 2024 and beyond, where a lot of our guys, we brought back like Kerry Hyder, we brought in Cleveland Farrell, Austin Bryant, they're all on 1-year deals. So then you have quality depth moving forward. But incredibly athletic, didn't have the huge numbers at Ohio State, but to me, he's a guy who could play like a Samson Ebukam type role. When we have pressure from the interior and Nick Bosa, is he a guy who can maybe clean up some sacks or even just force a quarterback to have to move out of the pocket, and then they fall into the loving arms of a guy like Nick Bosa or Eric Armstead or Javon Hargrave. Now, let's move on to pick 102. And what I'm really looking at here is potentially an offensive tackle I like Colton McKivitz. I think he's going to be solid to start the year. But however, I wouldn't be shocked that if we do bring in an offensive tackle relatively early in the draft, that they could put up a fight with McKivitz for that starting right tackle spot. The other thing too, and this is actually something that was brought up on a video or a stream that I did with 49ers Ultimate Report, is that, he was saying that maybe Trent Williams, who knows how long Trent Williams will be around. So I think maybe McKivitz then move to left tackle. A guy we bring in here becomes our right tackle of the future. So I am looking at tackle. However, it is really important to note too that you never want to draft specifically for need. So far, I think I've done a good job of trying to blend, need with the best player available. So what I'm going to do here is I am actually going to go a little bit off key, but I'm not going to go with Tyler Steen, the offensive tackle from Alabama. I think his profile fits really well to be a right tackle here in San Francisco. Someone who could be the long-term answer at right tackle, similar to what we saw. I do think Spencer Burford, who we drafted in the middle rounds last year, is a long-term option at right guard. Now it gives us a pretty, a nice blend on the offensive line of youth with that veteran type guy. So of course you look at someone like Trent Williams, Jake Brendel, they've been around for a longer time. Then you have Aaron Banks, Spencer Burford, Tyler Steen, even McKivitz, Jalen Moore. So you do have that blend of youth as well, which is really, really important. Now, moving on here, we are now in the 5th round, pick 155 overall, and there's a couple of names that really stick out to me here. We do have a couple of picks here in the 5th round, and I'm really, really tempted. If we look at a guy like Isaiah McGuire, 6'4", 268, man, like we did already draft an edge, but to me just seems really, really explosive. Could be a great option. I'm a big fan of a guy like KJ Henry too, someone who, if you look at his numbers, didn't put up big sack numbers, but he had a ton of pressures in college at Clemson. With all that being said, though, I think that we do have to look for depth across the board, and someone who I actually really like here is going to be Kei'Trel Clark, the cornerback out of Louisville. So when I look at Kei'Trel Clark, he's someone who plays a lot bigger than his size. Now, I think the prototypical cornerback that we tend to think about is a guy who's, 6'2", whatever, a long, rangy player, like that Richard Sherman type player. But I think we've kind of gone a little bit of a different direction recently, and I think we're a little bit more flexible in terms of size. And I just like the way that Kei'Trel Clark plays the game, really, really physical. And I think he's someone too that, plays bigger than his size and could excel in this defense. This is a defense where we do get after the quarterback, especially now when you factor in adding a guy like Javon Hargrave in free agency. So Kei'Trel Clark will be able to play aggressive. Although that being said, I'm not expecting him to be a starter day one. We have Deommodore Lenoir, we have Mooney Ward out there, and then of course we have guys who are developing like Sammy Womack. We brought in Isaiah Oliver, so we have solid depth at cornerback. But as we saw in 2021, you can't stress enough how important it is to have good depth at the cornerback position, or else it will just haunt you, especially in today's NFL. So overall, I'm really, really happy with how the draft is playing out. We got some needs filled on defense, combine that with some really good players available, and we addressed the offensive tackle position. So here we are, we're still in the 5th round at pick 164 overall, and again, some really, really great options who are still available, but maybe similar to the Tyler Steen pick here, I see a player, Will Mallory here. I think this would be a pretty solid blend of, best player available plus a need. I really do think that we're trying to find that guy who can really back up George Kittle and potentially be a long-term answer, at the tight end position. Love Kittle. He's not going anywhere, I don't think, but, he has been kind of banged up in recent years. So, but yeah, I think this would be a great option. You look at his the athletic score here, over a 9 in the 90, almost 91 percentile. So that's really solid. So again, a good blend of need with best player available, and we're taking Will Mallory, someone who can really compete with guys like Ross Dwelley and Charlie Werner for the backup tight end spot. Now, still in the 5th round, we do have this 3rd pick here, and Really some solid players available here. Guys who are standing out to me right away. You have Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Now this would be a very intriguing pick, especially, you know, of course, look, there are some rumors about what's going to happen with Trey Lance. I don't think he's going to go anywhere this year. But you know, Dorian DTR for short, really an intriguing skill set. And, you know, we saw last year how important it is to have depth at the quarterback position. I don't know if we would go with him at this point here. Someone else who we've met with a number of times, and I think having depth at defensive tackle, is Dante Stills. I think he's a really good fit for what we do. Someone who could really challenge a guy like Kevin Givens for that depth spot, you know, behind the starters in Armstead and Hargrave. So I'm going to take Dante Stills. Never a bad thing to beef up the depth on the defensive line. So important to have quality depth there. Again, we saw that last year with a number of players. We saw Armstead go down last year, Kinlaw, we had even Akeem Spence, we had a number of players go down. So having quality depth there really makes things easier for the rest of your defense. Now here we are at pick 216, so it's been quite a few picks since we've been on the board, and we're at the end of the 6th round. If you look here on the left side of the screen, there's still going to be plenty of picks. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 more picks in the 7th round, so we're looking pretty good right now. I think we've done a good job of addressing some maybe immediate needs, so I'm kind of at this point focusing more on let's just take some of the best players available and then see what we come up with there. So someone here, Antonio Mafi, this guy's a monster. If you've seen him in his workout videos, he is just ridiculously strong. So that's a really tempting pick here. But someone who I don't want to miss out on, and it's someone who's just been a staple in every mock draft seemingly that I've done, is I'm going Cam Jones, linebacker out of Indiana. If you've watched any of my other mock drafts, you've heard me talk about this guy. But for those of you who haven't, really important. He's a guy, absolute leader, really good against the run, so I think there is a chance for him, even in his rookie year, to see some snaps on base downs, you know, to play alongside Greenlaw and Warner, to learn from those guys is a huge benefit too. I'm just a big fan of his leadership qualities. You know, you look at Fred Warner, still playing, he's at the peak of his game. Greenlaw, we signed to a 2-year extension. You know, with a lot of big contracts coming up for the 49ers, you know, similar to what we've seen this offseason, we're going to have to let some good players go, and it's important to have that depth, and we build that depth now, so potentially in 2 years' time, maybe Greenlaw leaves in free agency, we have a guy like Cam Jones who I think could develop and be a really, really solid player beside a guy the likes of Fred Warner. So now we're in the 7th round. We have 4 picks left, and again, I'm going to try as much as possible to just stick with who I think are some of the best players available, and again, try to maybe match it up a little bit with need as well. But I think overall the Niners, at this point, we've covered a lot of our needs, so I think we're looking pretty good here. A name, you know, Max Duggan sticks out as a possible quarterback, and you know what? I'm tempted. Let me see what other quarterbacks are available while we're here. So, no one really else sticking out. So, you know, I'm tempted to go. I really do like some of the players here. And someone who actually has been, you know, garnering some interest is Mohamed Ibrahim, the running back for Minnesota. So let's take him. Look, I know the running back is definitely not a need for the San Francisco 49ers. We have, 4 or 5 quality guys already. But you just never know what can happen. We know, look, McCaffrey was and is amazing player. But he's someone who, in recent years, has had a couple of injury issues. We know about Elijah Mitchell, his issues. You know, TDP last year banged up as well. So having depth here is going to be a huge thing. And taking a guy in the 7th round at running back, someone who I think could, you know, contribute if needed, not a bad way to go, especially for a team like the 49ers where we love to run the football. To maybe give some more competition at the tight end position, I think here at this spot, I'm going to take the tight end out of Cincinnati, Josh Weil. So we've already brought in a player earlier, Will Mallory, the tight end out of Miami. Now we bring another tight end out of Cincinnati and really try, maybe the competition will bring out the best out of some of these guys and really get someone who can be an ideal backup for George Kittle, to take some of the load off him as well. I think, look, you want to have a guy like Kittle on the field as much as possible, considering probably the best all-around tight end in the game with his blocking, catching, run after the catch, all that good stuff. But you still maybe want to limit him a little bit in terms of snaps to mitigate the risk of injuries and things like that. So we're at pick 253. I think we've done a really solid job overall, and I'm kind of aiming at two positions here right now, which we haven't addressed yet, which would be getting maybe some depth at quarterback, and I do think we need some at kicker as well. I think there's someone, to challenge a guy like Zane Gonzalez. I don't think Zane Gonzalez has shown near enough in the NFL to be just handed a starting job for a team that obviously has Super Bowl aspirations. So Jake Moody is a pretty popular pick. I've taken him in mock drafts before, but here I'm going to go with Chad Ryland. Really impressive career in college. Was at a smaller school, went to Maryland, really good, percentage conversion rate, and especially from beyond 50 as well. So I think he could be someone who really challenges Zane Gonzalez for that kicker spot. And I do like that Ryland kicks a lot of kickoffs that result in touchbacks, which anyone who's watched any of my live streams knows just how important that is to me, and a lot of times to my sanity as well. So we're going to finish off the draft right here, and we're going to take Malik Cunningham, the quarterback out of Louisville. I actually didn't mean to select him that quickly. I meant to click on his profile to read a little bit more about him, but I think, having some depth at quarterback in the seventh round, similar to what we did last year. If you think about last year, although at this time last year it was assumed that Garoppolo would not end up being with the Niners, you think about what happened going into training camp and into the season, where we had Lance, we had Garoppolo, Purdy, we also had Sudfeld on the roster earlier in the offseason. So having quality depth there, if last year taught us anything, you have to have quality depth at the quarterback position, and someone that we can target and someone who we can maybe groom for the future. I think there is going to come a time in the very near future where we're going to have to decide, and maybe it is this season. Are we going to go with Trey Lance, Brock Purdy? What's going to happen? We have a quality backup in Sam Darnold. But I don't think that, and even though both guys like Purdy and Lance are just absolute professionals, and really seemingly like wise beyond their years and really professional in how they're handling all of this, there will come a point where both these guys are just competitors, and whoever's not starting basically is going to want to be like, where's my opportunity? I want to be the guy out there making things happen and being the quarterback for a franchise. So getting quality depth at quarterback, such a huge deal. What I'm going to do here, guys, let me scroll up so you guys can get an idea, and we'll go through very quickly who we drafted in my final mock draft for 2023. Crazy how quickly the year has gone. So we started off with Jammie Robinson, safety out of Florida State, which I think is a great fit. Probably will see some snaps this year, and also I think for next year. This is really a pick a year out, which will really benefit us, similar to when we drafted Talanoa Hufanga to ultimately replace Jaquiski Tartt, and we saw how well that worked out. Then we get a really solid edge player here in Zach Harrison. Fits the athletic profile for what the Niners like at the edge position, especially to play opposite Nick Bosa, and they are now, of course, both Ohio State alums. Tyler Steen, we get some depth at right tackle. To me, Tyler Steen is a guy who could potentially be a starter for us at right tackle day one. It might be a little bit difficult to unseat Colton McKivitz because McKivitz has been in the system for a few years and all of that. However, we saw that last year Shanahan wasn't afraid to go with guys on the offensive line with a little less experience. I mean, you look at Aaron Banks really making his first start in the NFL in his second year. Of course, the rookie Spencer Burford, Jake Brendel didn't play much regular season action in his career, so I don't think Shanahan's afraid now to go with maybe some younger guys with a higher upside on the offensive line, and Tyler Steen is that. I think he could be an ideal guy to be a long-term answer at right tackle. Then we go with some cornerback depth with Kei'Trel Clark, someone who, again, maybe doesn't fit the prototypical size for what we look for in cornerbacks, but has the mindset, and I think that's something that's just as, if not more important, and really just plays the position. Love the way he plays the position. We get some depth here at tight end, which we also do later with two players here. We get Will Mallory in the 5th round, and we get Josh Weil in the 7th round, just for that competition with Dwelly, with Charlie Werner, to see who can compete behind George Kittle. That's something that I think the Shanahan's really tried to address for a while. We brought in Jordan Reed a few years back, Tyler Kroft, we've drafted Werner. So I think that is something that's on the mind of Shanahan, to have like a legitimate tight end too, behind George Kittle. Dante Stills, some really good depth on the defensive line. Again, we saw last year just how important it is to have that depth on the D-line. Cam Jones, talked about him so many times, love his leadership, love the way he plays the game, and I think could be a long-term option should either, Greenlaw maybe would be a little bit more likely, who could leave in a couple of years once his contract runs out, so having a long-term solution there. Muhammad Ibrahim, again, depth at running back, having that depth. A lot of our running backs have had some injury issues in the past. We talked a little bit about Josh Weil. Chad Ryland, we're not just going to hand the job to Zane Gonzalez. I don't think he's shown that much in his NFL career that we can just give him the starting job. So get someone who was a really solid kicker in college, and have competition there. And finally, we end off the draft with Malik Cunningham, the quarterback out of Louisville. Interesting skill set from Malik Cunningham, and maybe could be, I like the mobility there, similar to even like Brock Purdy. I like the mobility where they can make plays, and Trey Lance, of course, who can make plays with their legs if they need to. But overall, I think a really good draft here. I'm really happy with it. I want to know your guys' thoughts on the players that I picked here. Let me know your thoughts. And of course, guys, this year, with where I am at now, I won't be doing the live streams for the draft just because of the time zone difference, but I'll definitely be looking in, keeping an eye on all the big moves that are happening, especially, and we'll be doing videos on the players that the 49ers do ultimately select. But we'll finish off this video here with, let me know your thoughts on my draft. Hopefully I didn't go too quickly through anything. Maybe, again, feel free to make suggestions for who you would have taken in the spots, as opposed to some of the guys that I took. And, guys, before I head out, I'm always going to say two things. You know what they are. The butt counts, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side.